Oh, first off, let me just say hi. Welcome to the holidays, everybody. Don Geronimo with my annual reading of the Hamburger James story begins now. Hamburger James was a guy who wanted to be in the Memphis Mafia, and he was eventually initiated as a member. But his role in the Mafia was somewhat limited. Mainly, he was just the guy who went out for hamburgers at 3 a.m. or whenever Elvis had a desire for one. When Elvis wanted something, he wanted it right then and there. It didn't matter if that was a car or a horse or a hamburger. It didn't matter if places were open or closed or if it was 3 in the morning. In fact, this is why James Cawley was given the name Hamburger James. He would be the one to run out for hamburgers at Elvis's whim. And now the story itself. Hamburger James and Elvis's Kit from People magazine, 1984. One afternoon, my mom pulls up at a beautiful Continental with a guy who's a perfect stranger to me. I come out of boarding school. My mom's sitting in the front seat. And the guy she introduces as our new daddy is Vernon. And the three of us are ushered into the back seat. We leave from school. We drive to the mansion at Graceland. All of a sudden, there's a big, beautiful house. The very first thing I want to notice is all these bodyguards walking around with big guns under their arms. Big gold records were everywhere. Elvis was standing by the record player listening to records. He walked across the room, and I knew from the first time I met this guy, he's different. When I was 17 and getting into drugs, Elvis figured he could help straighten me out. He wanted me to go work with him as his personal aide, but I knew I would have a difficult time convincing my mom to let me go on the road. So he told her that I would have a private tutor. I would be in church every morning, all these different things. I should point out that the story I'm reading here is from a guy named Rick Stanley, who was Elvis's stepbrother. Okay? Came to Elvis via marriage. Elvis with his stepbrother. My first trip with Elvis was to Washington, D.C. We were sitting on a plane. He's on the aisle, and I'm right beside him. Elvis looked at me, and he said, "I'm the teacher. I'm the teacher," with that big grin on his face. "I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. And by the way, when you see it here on the road, you don't say nothing about it home to your mama, okay?" We got to the hotel. We were there 5 minutes, and all these girls were there. All these guys have got all these girls waiting. None of the wives were ever allowed to go on the road with Elvis, and that was one of the reasons why. Elvis looks at me and says, "There are 2 girls that I've dated who are going to be here, Joyce and Janice." Now, Elvis is a married man. He's got not only 1 girl, but 2 girls. That was the night that Elvis initiated me into what was called the Memphis Mafia. He called me at 4 o'clock in the morning and asked me to find him a cheeseburger in downtown Washington, D.C. It was December of 1970, freezing weather. When he said he wanted cheeseburgers, I said, "Elvis, where do I get them?" And he said, "That's your problem. Find out." I called the bellman. The bellman didn't know. I literally got out in the streets of D.C. and I had to find a place. I did. I put the cheeseburgers inside my coat and I ran all the way back to the hotel, got upstairs, went to the room, and one of the girls was in there. I pulled the hamburgers out and gave them to Elvis, and he said, "I don't want them. I was just seeing if you could do it." Eventually, I took care of Elvis whenever we were traveling. I did everything. I made sure all his meals were taken care of. I took care of his wardrobe and his jewelry. I taped up the windows so the sun couldn't come in. I set up the room. I carried the kit that contained all of his medications. When Elvis would come off stage, it was my responsibility to get a towel around his neck, a glass of water in his hand, a coat on his back. Then to get him in a car and make sure that those vents weren't blowing on him. Usually in the car, it was mostly just him and me in the back seat, someone driving us. Girls were always available. Always. It was a matter of picking the ones that Elvis wanted. And he wanted a girl every night. He had to have someone in bed with him. I don't think sex was even involved a lot of the time. Elvis just hated to be alone. If there wasn't a girl there, I would sometimes sleep at the foot of Elvis's bed. When Elvis wanted a girl, someone would go find him one. We called it trolling. Elvis would look around and say, "Fellas, it's time to go trolling." And we knew what that meant. Someone had to go downstairs and get 4 or 5 girls for Elvis to look over. I introduced Elvis to a lot of girls. Members of the entourage introduced him to some. It was usually me, because I knew his taste. He liked tall, clean girls. In one of the Vegas hotels, they would gather together in the lounge area and sit around on sofas and wait. When Elvis wanted someone to go trolling, I'd go down, I'd look them over, I'd pick out 4 or 5. I'd just tell the girls that Elvis wanted to meet them, and I asked if they want to come up to his suite. It was very cool, but nobody knew what was up. It was a whole routine. When I was gone, Elvis would get out stuff to talk to them about. He carried books on astrology and numerology and that sort of thing, so he could make conversation with girls. Anyway, I would take them up, and there he would be, smiles and gracious. Elvis could make a woman feel wonderful. They'd sit around in the suite for a while. Elvis would look them over as he talked to them. Then he'd let me know which one he wanted to stay. When the visit wore down, I would escort the others to the door, and the one that was chosen would stay behind. I'd instruct her. I'd tell her what Elvis liked and what Elvis didn't like. I'd tell her that if things worked out in a way and she was going to stay the night, and I knew they'd already decided they were going to stay the night, or they wouldn't be there, there might be some things she would like to know. Like, Elvis always liked to eat in bed. So I would set a table up on the bed. I'd tell them Elvis always ate and slept in PJs, and I left some of his pajama tops in the bathroom just for them. And I would tell them Elvis insisted that everybody around him be very clean. Take a shower before you put on Elvis's PJs. I told them they could order anything they wanted to eat, but Elvis hated the smell of fish. So they could get whatever they wanted, but no fish. I told them they should brush their teeth after they ate. Elvis always did. Put a new toothbrush in the bathroom for them. I'd always take a big batch of toothbrushes on the road with us. A big double handful. I told them Elvis loved to have his back and shoulders rubbed. That was it. I'd serve them, and I would leave. Well, we're only in the beginning of the story. We've not even gotten to Hamburger James yet, and already in my mind I can see families around the metro nestled around their smart speakers. They've got the eggnog going, sleet's on the way outside, and you're listening to the Hamburger James story, the 2022 edition. 612.EG. Be right back with more on Big 100.
The Don Geronimo Show on Big 100, Washington's classic rock.
All right, 618. I'm getting all kinds of action on the social medias today. Here's Barbie writes in, is this the same Hamburger James story as every year? Why are you playing commercials? Yes, it is. And if you recall, even on WJFK, when we did All Talk, you had to play commercials. You can't. The Hamburger James story is not a 5-minute on and gone. I will get right back to it. Here's I'm back to the Hamburger James story. Let me give you a little bit more, because we're going to get near the kit now. I just had a note on social. Some guy said the kit. Priscilla would fly into Vegas on weekends. They'd stay in the 4-bedroom presidential suite on the 30th floor of their hotel. I'd have to take Priscilla's dresses out of the suite when she was away and write down where each dress was hung and its color, because she wanted them kept in a certain order. I'd move them back when she was about to come in. Priscilla knew what was going on, but she couldn't prove it, so she had to ignore it. If she came back the next week and those dresses were messed up, ooh, wow, that was bad. The kit went everywhere with Elvis, and I was the guy designated to take care of it. If Elvis went out for a drive, that meant I brought the kit. And in all kinds of uppers, Dexedrine, Black Beauties. Then you've got your Class A, Percodan, Demerol and Codeine, Barbiturates, 2-Ni, Seconal, Numbutal, Carbitol. Towards the end, there was liquid Demerol and needles. And Elvis had money in the kit. $10,000 in cash in a wallet, along with his makeup, his driver's license, and a lot of jewelry. The kit. Where's my kit, man? All right, back to Elvis, the Hamburger James story in a moment, everybody. Don't forget, real life is happening out there. Sleet and freezing rain. Everything should be done by about 11 a.m. when it goes to all rain, heavy rain today. Schools everywhere, universally, 2 hours late. Sleet right now, 32 at Big 100. Big 100, well, I have no windows in my gray studio. You know that. They do that on purpose to me. However, they do have a hallway that I have access to, and there is a window out there. Freezing rain. What we got right now? Sleet and freezing rain. Then all rain later today. High 44. 32 right now. Don Geronimo Show on Big 100, buddies. Well, it's my annual reading of the Hamburger James story. We just heard about Elvis's kit. Back to the story. Elvis started taking prescribed drugs from his mother when he was a young man. Antidepressants and uppers. She was depressed, always overweight, taking diet pills. Just got them from her pill cabinet. He just took them. He'd justify it by saying, I need it. I'll need it. You see, for every bit of drugs or whatever he took, there was always a reason. I'll need this because I sprained my back. Or, I'll need this because I got to rest tonight. His daddy confronted him about it, about his pill use. And he'd say, Daddy, I know what I'm doing. Use and abuse are two different things. Pretty funny coming from Elvis. A lot of big money performers think it's fun to have servants hanging around all the time. There was a guy that ended up working for Elvis, helping me. But he didn't have much of a job. Mainly, he went for stuff like hamburgers. We called him Hamburger James. Well, I'm in Elvis's suite one day. He yells out to me from his bedroom, someone's been in his kit. He said some things were missing, some money and some pictures. We ran all over the place. The only person we couldn't find was Hamburger James. Elvis was more than mad. He was in a wild rage. And it spread to everybody. You see, Elvis had pictures in the kit. I didn't look at them. There were pictures of Priscilla. Hamburger James took some of those photos, too. So Elvis was hot. Man, was he hot. And everyone's running around looking for Hamburger James. And someone says, I bet he's at the airport. We were in Las Vegas at the time. Elvis screams, get the car. We race out of the hotel and pile into a couple of cars. 6 or 7 of us. We're driving like crazy because somebody found out a plane is supposed to leave from Memphis in just a few minutes. We come screeching up to the airport and everybody piles out. Some people were wearing guns and shoulder holsters with no coat on. Elvis is right there with us. Everybody's running to all the different counters, jumping up and down to look over the heads of the crowd, trying to find Hamburger James. Everybody in the place is freaking out. Women are grabbing their kids and hugging them, where all these guys with guns are all over the place. Remember, this was Las Vegas, 1974. Stars like Elvis are protected in places like Las Vegas. Anyway, it all happened pretty fast. Finally, somebody runs up and says he found the place where the plane from Memphis is leaving. It's about to leave the gate. So we all run like mad to get up there. The guys are all pounding on the glass, and Elvis runs up to the girl at the gate and starts saying, stop that plane. Stop that plane. She ignores him for a second or two. Then she starts to get hysterical, and she screams, I can't stop the plane. Elvis pulls out one of his police badges. One of the bunch he'd been given over the years. And he flashes the badge at her and he says, I'm a federal officer. I said, stop that plane. Then she finally sees it's Elvis. She goes all buttery. She starts whimpering like, oh, it's you, it's you. Can I have your autograph? Oh, Elvis. And he yells, stop that plane. I'm a federal officer. I tell you, I want that plane stopped right now. She's looking at him kind of funny. He's looking at her both mad and confused and kind of flattered. All at once. I never done understand why, but the plane stopped and pulled back up to the gate. They opened the door and Elvis's bodyguards ran down the aisles, and there in the back was old Hamburger James, all huddled down and hiding. They dragged him right up to the aisle, right off the plane and out of the airport. He was wailing and crying and trying to get away. Some of the guys are punching every once in a while to get him to be quiet. I'm sure he thought we were going to take him out in the desert and dig him a grave. We race back to the hotel, and Elvis's people drag Hamburger James into the elevator. Up to Elvis's suite, and we throw him down on the couch. Elvis walks up, and the crowd of people kind of parts. Hamburger James is sobbing like crazy and scared to death. Elvis walks in front of him. Elvis then leans down and picks up a big, heavy coffee table. He doesn't say anything. He's dead quiet. I'm thinking, oh my God, Elvis is going to murder Hamburger James. He's going to smash him in the head with that table. How are we going to talk our way out of this one? But Elvis puts the table down to one side. He walks up to Hamburger James and looks at him real cold and quiet. Elvis reaches over while Hamburger James is looking straight at him, scared to death, and Elvis slaps him twice. Like in the movies, a slap and a backhand, then pow, pow again, 2 slaps. Then the most amazing thing happened. Hamburger James got a funny look on his face and wilted like a baby. He cried and cried like his heart was broken. He said he was sorry he stole from Elvis and he would give it all back. He knew he had done something wrong and he could never be forgiven for. Elvis looked at him for a hard minute. Then he broke down and started crying too. He just sobbed and sobbed. Elvis was on his knees in front of Hamburger James and said he was sorry. He kept saying, "Why did you let me know you needed money? Let me know you want to go back to Memphis. I would have given you money. You don't have to steal from Elvis." He cried and cried for a long time. And Elvis kept telling Hamburger James he didn't have to leave. He could keep his job, but Hamburger James wanted to go. Elvis gave him a few weeks' salary and somebody took him back to the airport. Elvis always wanted to be a tough guy, but he couldn't really. He really always cared about people. I remember children in wheelchairs coming backstage before a concert and Elvis being so moved and shaken. We were wondering if he was going to be able to sing that night. What people don't understand is Elvis was suffering towards the end. Drugs were everywhere, and in the latter part of his life, they started taking control. He couldn't think or act straight anymore. When he fell out of bed in the morning, there was a handful of uppers, and he'd chase him with coffee. I'd have to order 3 breakfasts because Elvis would get so out of it on those uppers, he'd be rattling and talking, and his food would get cold. Halfway through, I'd have to order another one, sitting over there ready. He'd get wired like that. They'd give him Valium or something later in the day to take the edge off. Then right before he went on stage, the doctors would give him uppers. Then when he came off the stage, they gave him something to calm him down. They'd give him something else to help him go to sleep. Sometimes Elvis would get so out of it during a meal, he'd be sitting there and he'd be nodding off. You'd always have to watch him because, well, he might get a piece of hamburger meat hung up in his throat. On more than one occasion, I had to go in when he was choking in bed and reach down his throat and pull stuff out, pound on his chest. It was sad. I mean, the guy's 20 years older than me, and I'm holding him up, and I've got my arms around him. Are you okay, boss? He was practically ruined by his lifestyle. Elvis had bad eating habits. Everybody was trying to get him to lose weight. They had to be careful, though, making suggestions, or Elvis would get mad. They do it indirectly, like making sure Elvis was around when he could hear when they would say something like, "I had a friend who lost a lot of weight eating yogurt." So later, Elvis would start eating yogurt. He'd get those little containers of yogurt with fruit, but it didn't work because Elvis would eat 20 of them at a time and kept on eating whatever else he was eating too. Same thing happened with peaches. Elvis got on a peach craze. He'd eat peaches all the time. Day and night, I'd find those pits everywhere. He'd throw them on the floor. It got to be 350 pounds. It got to where we had to take giant spools of saran wrap, giant ones, and wrap him to hold his stomach in. That made it almost impossible for him to breathe. In the latter part of his life, he wasn't hitting many notes. He was mouthing them. going through the motions. That's really pretty much it. It's a happy Christmas story because Elvis didn't kill Hamburger James with a coffee table. Thank you. Merry Christmas. 6:39, Donnie G right here on Big 100.
Washington's classic rock, Big 100, the Don Geronimo Show.
Hey, all right, everybody. Calm down, sit down, cross your legs. You're right. There's a little bit more of the Hamburger James story. I forgot to read the part about Elvis on the toilet. I will get to that part. I will finish the story in a moment. 6:45 at Big 100. Sleet, freezing rain turning to all rain. Most major schools are in a 2-hour delay today. Right now in Classic Rockville, it's 32. And it's sleety.
Big 100.
Sleety.
Hey, mama.
Big 100, home of the Commanders. You can win tickets for Sunday Night Football. Commanders and the Giants. I'll have them for you at 8:30 this morning on Low Budget Jeopardy. 10 minutes until 6 o'clock. Now, nearly famous. I didn't need that, but thank you.
Big 100.
I was going to say my name, but I don't have to because they just sang it. I am ready for the rest of the story. As Paul Harvey used to say. God, you people are good. I got a bunch of notes from people saying, what about the part with Elvis dying on the toilet? Okay. Normally I stop the Elvis story after they wrap him in saran wrap, but here's the absolute last bit of the Hamburger James story. Remember, Elvis had to be wrapped in saran wrap. He was just going through the motions. On Elvis's last night alive, I had just gotten off the phone with my girlfriend, Robin. Throughout the years, she would encourage me to give up drugs, and she said that when she hung up the phone. She was going to pray something would happen to turn my life around. I went upstairs, and I sat down on the bed with Elvis. He pulled the reading glasses down over his nose. He wore the kind that looked like they were cut in half. And he flipped the side of his glasses in his mouth. He really looked kind of cool because his sideburns hadn't been dyed yet. He had gray in there. He was pretty mellow. He seemed to be pretty tired, not physically, but emotionally spent. We sat, we talked for a while, and he handed me a piece of paper. It was the outline of the book being written by his ex-bodyguards. It talked about his drug use. He asked me 2 questions. He said, what is Lisa Marie going to think? And then he said, what are my fans going to think? I said, well, Lisa Marie's your daughter. She'll love you. And your fans will love you no matter what. We talked for a little while. I told him about the conversation with Robin. How I was going to get off drugs, get my life straightened out. That type of thing. I could tell Elvis wanted his medication, his sleeping pills, pretty soon. I use the word medication because if you use the word drugs, people think crack and heroin. Elvis never used those. I brought him a pack of medication pills that were just to the right of the steps of the bedroom in a cabinet. There were packages in there that Elvis called the attack packs because that's what he wanted them to do. Attack him and knock him out. Where's my attack pack, man? We're sitting here and talking, and I'm telling him about Robin and the advice she'd been giving me over the years. Elvis had met her and he liked her. Thought she was a nice kid. She's giving you good advice, Rick. She really cares. He talked a while longer. A tour was starting the next day, and he was not excited about it at all. When I was leaving, Elvis said, I do not want to be bothered. I do not want to be disturbed. To anyone that worked with Elvis, you knew that meant one of 2 things. He wanted to spend time with his girlfriend, Ginger, or he wanted to sleep. But he let me know he did not want to be disturbed, and with Elvis, that was a firm command. Many times I saw Elvis be so out of it, he'd go in the bathroom, he'd be sitting on the head, and he would fall forward. I'd have to go pick him up when that would happen. Many times. And that's my theory on the death of Elvis. You see, that shag carpeting is thick, big, thick stuff. The night when Elvis fell forward, being so overweight and so out of it, he couldn't lift himself. And he's smothered in shag carpeting. If I'd gone back up there, I may have found him. But I was abusing drugs, too. I think it would be safe to say I had enough Demerol going through me right then to sedate Whitehaven. That's a suburb of Memphis. So instead, I went back to my own room and I shot up. I was pretty much numb from then on out. As for my stepfather, when Elvis died, that was the end of our relationship. I was asked to leave the mansion. We don't need you anymore, is what Vernon said. He gave me 2 weeks' notice. And there, all the way to the very bitter end, when Elvis dies on the toilet and is sucking up shag carpeting, there you go, the official Hamburger James story. You're welcome. Happy holidays, all that jazz. 6:55, Donnie G on Big 100. This